Hello guys, welcome back to another episode of Vibe Different. We are already at episode 6. I literally cannot believe that we've already come so far. It's been so exciting. Last week we talked about the cross, what it means to us, and if you haven't listened to it, I definitely recommend you check it out because some really great things were mentioned on there. But today I am so excited for what we're about to get into. We are going to talk all about helping out, loving our neighbor, and that's going to be through missions. But first, I'm going to introduce Ellie. She is joining us today, and I'm so excited. Love her so much.
Hey guys.
You want to say hi?
Hello, my name is Ellie. I was on a podcast like 2 weeks ago, I think, or 3 weeks. I'm not sure. But you probably know me as a youth leader, and then I also work with Brooke and the youth team on getting youth involved with missions and outreach and figuring out how to do that, you know, like in our world, but then also in our own city. So super fun job.
Yeah, that's really awesome. We love Ellie so much, truly. And
Thanks.
Then I'm, me, Kat, just out here, 7th grade youth leader, love them, college student. Love
About to graduate.
About to graduate. Yeah, the usual. So we are just going to dive right into it. But I know that missions can be pretty misunderstood, at least like whenever I go on TikTok, I just see a lot about it because I'm like in between Christian TikTok and not like when I was on it, guys. I did delete that. But when I was on it, I was in between two worlds. And I would see a lot of just like different positions on it. Some people thought it was really like, I saw the word imperialistic thrown around, racist, and a lot of people who thought that money to missions is money poorly spent because it goes to bad causes. And we're here to dispel a little bit about that, because one thing that I've loved is that being at Greenhouse Church and Greenhouse Youth is that it really is a church that focuses on going beyond the four walls. So not just staying in here and just being with each other, but like how can we help people who are in the world? Like how can we help the people who need help the most, you know? And so that's even in the gospel, like we're specifically told by Jesus to love one another, to care for one another, to care for the poor, care for widows. Like obviously that was really important to Jesus. And so I even just want to hear from you if you can maybe explain missions a little bit. And there's even terms like unreached people, underserved people. So if you could just like help break it down for us.
Yes, I would love to. So just as like a preface, missions in general, or like this topic in general, is like super complex. And there's a lot of like ins and outs of like really effective ways to help people. And then also like sharing the gospel and sharing who Jesus is to people. And so we probably won't get into all of it today, but maybe just like even a preview of some of those things. And if you have more questions or are curious about more topics, you can always let me know or let Brooke know, and we'd love to like connect you to things to get more involved in that. But I think missions is like viewed as like imperialistic or racist a lot of times, because that is sometimes part of like the history of the church. Like there are a lot of instances where people like took over a region and forced people in that region to be Christians, and force them into a way of life that they didn't really know like about, and they didn't really understand what it meant. But to them, it meant like these people are actually pretty much like enslaving us and making us believe in a God that we don't know. So like things like that, I think there are parts of that that are true and like are not what we as youth or we as a church like would want to ever be like. But there is an aspect of like, we are called by God to share Jesus to the ends of the earth, like to everyone who doesn't believe, and then also to serve people who are the least of these. So like what you're saying, two different terms of like an unreached people group would be people who have never ever heard like they don't know who Jesus is, or like the concept of that. Like they might believe in something else, or they may not believe in anything. So I've heard a lot of times it described as like being an unreached people group is like you are, okay, actually, let me backtrack. Being in an area where you have access to the gospel, like there's churches around, or maybe people in that area do believe in God, but you just personally don't, or maybe you haven't heard about it, but it's available in your region or wherever you live. That would be like the equivalent of like you're swimming at the pool and like you fall into the pool and there's a lifeguard there and they can like save you from drowning because there's access to someone who can help. Whereas being in an unreached area means like is if you could picture like being on like a cruise ship, so like thousands of people, it's the middle of the night, it's pitch black, and you're like standing on one of like the decks and you like accidentally fall into the ocean in the pitch black. Like there's gonna be no one to help you. Like you don't even have access to help at that point. And so thinking about it like that in those two sense, and then also like being an underserved area, like how can we partner with people in our own community and then also in other countries to serve people who don't have access to basic needs because God has called us to, and that's what Jesus did on earth is he helped provide basic needs for people, and that's how we should model our lives as well.
That's really great. Thanks. That really helps clear it up. So maybe some of you guys are having conversations even with your friends like at lunch and they're asking all these questions. This is a really great way even just to like really simply break it down for what the different kinds are. So that was really helpful. And you have been on a few missions trips. I know you've been to Honduras before. I think El Salvador.
I haven't been to El Salvador.
Not yet? Okay. I'm sure you will. Oh, Haiti. Okay. So I was wondering if you could even just share with us a little bit of your experience, like what you've seen and experienced while being on a missions trip.
Yes. Yeah. So in high school, as some of you know, I was a part of Greenhouse Youth when it used to be called Sweat. Shout out to Sweat. And at that time, when I was in high school, we would take missions trips to Honduras, to Tegucigalpa, which is the capital. And we worked with an organization who was a school for children who essentially like they worked in like on a mountain. It's called Trash Mountain, where they didn't have access to education. They just worked all day sorting through trash that the city's dump would go to this mountain, and they would sort through it to find things to sell, like collect plastic to sell plastic, and that's what they lived off of. So the founders of the school like saw the need of these kids that don't have access to an education. So we got to partner with them and work with the school and like work with the teachers there, which was cool for me because I have always wanted to be a teacher. So I got to like get experience like working with teachers in another country. And then we would also build a house for one of the families who lived on the mountain. And I think something that like Greenhouse strives to do is to partner with organizations that are already rooted in that country. So it's not like you're just gonna like pop in, pretend like you're gonna save all these people and then leave, get a few pictures with a few kids, post on Instagram, and then pop out of there. But really trying to partner with people who like are live in that country, like either are a missionary there, and also very important to have people who like are Honduran if you're working with people in Honduras, because it shouldn't be a like savior complex is what people say, like you come in thinking that you can save everything or everyone, but being rooted in what area they are already in. So that's the experience I had in Honduras. Very similar in Haiti. We got to work with some schools, and I went with Greenhouse as well. We got to work with some schools there that the church and Pastor Obed, shout out, love him. I don't think he listens to this podcast, but he's the best person in the world. But he's a pastor of a church in Haiti, and he works with different schools in their region. And we got to put on like trainings for teachers when we were there. That's
awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. So it sounds like you get to do really practical stuff, which is cool. So it's more than just like Sunday school things.
Right. Yeah.
That's great. That's great. Yeah. So yeah, Ellie is like the best teacher ever. We love her. I always wish I was in her second grade class.
I'm not, guys. My students will listen to this. We're just kidding. They won't listen. But one day they'll listen back and be like, she was not that good. Makes
you want to pull a Buddy the Elf and just sit in class.
What about you? Have you had like missions experiences?
Yeah. So I guess like I've done a lot of local missions. My parents, if they're hearing this, which I know they are, shout out. They are very missional. And so from a young age, everything was always about beyond the four walls of the church. So it was very focused on what can we do to serve others. One of my favorite experiences was when we moved to Florida. We started helping out this thing called, well, now I can't remember what it's called. Oh, Operation Shoebox. So it was basically
like Operation Christmas Child, kind of.
maybe it's called that. I don't know. Yeah, but it's probably similar. So it's basically like we would go to a church and we would take like shoe boxes, literally like your old shoe boxes, and you fill it with things and you actually ship that to kids in countries who aren't going to get any Christmas gifts. And so it wasn't like overtly Christian, but it was like run by a Christian organization. I can't remember which one. And so it was so cool because I'll never forget one year my mom like washed, like, I don't know if you guys know, like the Menchie's, like the frozen yogurt chain, the spoons, they're like really, they're cute. And so my mom like got those and sent them in the box, and the kids loved them. Like it was like a toy to them. They thought it was so cool. And so every year we would try and do more and more boxes. And so it started off as like a few. I remember one year like distinctly doing 12 and like being so happy because like after like the whole day of packing it, you'd be so tired. And then my parents have had like a local homeless ministry where they feed the homeless in the Kissimmee area of Florida for years. And so I got to help them out with that. And it was really cool to see like you don't have to leave. But then I left abroad this year for my first international mission trip to Honduras. And that was really cool because I just never like really seen that sort of experience of the gospel, but even hearing these students, like how they're able to learn about Jesus on their level. And it was really about like meeting them where they're at and knowing like, I'm not here to save them. I'm just here to let them know what saved me. And that's Jesus.
That's
and so
true. I think that, really I think that's interesting too. Cause like, I think sometimes like 1 week mission trips are like looked down upon because I think a lot of them can tend to be like formatted in a way that you do just pop in and like essentially you think you're saving you know a certain group of people wherever you go, and it is like a stereotype, like take some pictures, post on Instagram, look, I'm such a good person, I feel better about myself, and I'm gonna go home and like be thankful for what I have. Which I'm not saying that's not true all the time, but I think there is an aspect of going on a missions trip even for a short amount of time because you do get to actually see like people that are different from you, one, and you get to see like how other people live, and also how other people, like not just their weaknesses or like what they lack, but also like what they have in Christ, because it is sometimes different just based on what we have access to like here, versus like someone who may not have as many resources, but like they love Jesus. And like getting to see that is a really cool aspect of getting to go on a short-term mission trip. You also get to see like what types of organizations you can partner with, and like are you called to missions like for a longer period of time. So I don't think it's always necessarily a bad thing, because like you said, that was your first one out of the country and you got to actually like experience it instead of just like watch someone else. And it was definitely a blessing. We were able to see the Garifuna people group in Honduras, and so they're Afro-Honduran, and it was just really cool to even see that. But even like with the local missions that we would do, something that like really stuck out to me is I remember at first when we would do it, I never would have called it missions. It was years later. Somebody was like, oh, like that's local missions. I just thought it was helping people out. It's going back to what you said about meeting people their basic needs. Like my parents give these people food and clothes, and for like women, like the feminine products, and just like what they can to meet those people where they're at. And so a lot of people have been touched by Jesus through that. And you don't even need, like, I know a lot of people are probably really insecure because they're like, I didn't go to Bible college. Like I can't preach a whole sermon. Okay, but can you give somebody like a plate of food? Like, can you give somebody like a t-shirt? Great. You can do what Jesus did. Like you don't need to, have this big like PhD in theology to be able to do that. And something as simple as just being like, hey, God bless you. Like, Jesus really does love you. And like, I know like you're unseen by the world, but there's somebody who does see you and who really wants to meet you where you're at. And so I really like how you brought that up. And so I know that a lot of teenagers, even speaking to them, are really interested in helping people. Like I love that this generation will organize a GoFundMe faster than anyone I've seen. And then y'all will like meet the goal, break the goal, double it. Like it's crazy. They go hard. They go hard for what they believe in. Yeah,
you guys definitely do. And so I know that maybe that can be talked down upon. Like, oh, you guys are just so passionate, maybe about the wrong things. But I really want whoever's listening to this to know, like, whatever you're passionate about, like if you're really passionate about, like, I want, like women to feel loved, like there's women's ministries, like how can you get involved in like serving them and going out to community? Like I said, like there's like homeless women who need feminine products. Like we can meet people where they're at, whatever group it is that you're really passionate about. I know that there's a lot of people who do want to help. And so maybe you could explain to us how teenagers could help with where they are in the world. I know some of them, it's not very realistic for them to like go somewhere. What could they start doing now in this stage of life?
That's really good. I think usually something like how can I like serve others is usually breaking down to like money, time, and like prayer, which I think all of those three should be like in conjunction with each other, but maybe like one area more at a time than others. So I think I'm gonna give an example of two friends that I have. Shout out to Cassidy and Owen Klein. We
love them.
They're like, if I was to choose like a person that like I know of that like truly serves God and wants people to know the love of Jesus and will do anything for that to happen, it's Owen and Cassidy. They currently work with Kids Church in Pine Ridge, which is a neighborhood in Gainesville, and they like faithfully every Wednesday have Kids Church with anyone in the neighborhood that wants to come, and they literally share Jesus with them. But it's not just like even just a drop in like, hey, I'm gonna do this for you on Wednesday. Like they live in the community. They serve and meet like any need that they know of. If they can't personally meet their need, like if they can't buy something for someone, they'll like reach out to everyone they know and they'll make it happen for things that people need. And I think that's like they're not living in Thailand or somewhere in Africa like being a missionary. They're literal missionaries in the city of Gainesville, serving the people around them that have needs that need to be met. And I think it's important to realize like wherever you are, and I guess also, I was going to read this verse at some point too, but at the beginning of the book of Acts, this is like right before Jesus leaves, and disciples are like low-key kind of sad, and they're like, hello, you just came back, like why are you going to leave us? But Jesus says, and it's in verse 8, but you will receive power when the Holy Spirit comes on you, and you will be my witnesses in Jerusalem and in all Judea and Samaria and to the ends of the earth. So he's talking about like when he's leaving his spirit with us. And it actually says like God's spirit, when God's spirit equips us, like it's even more than like what could have been done if he stayed on earth, which I think is even crazy. But it's saying like almost like the ripple effect, like it's going to start where you live and then like ripple to your state and then ripple to your country and then ripple to the ends of the earth or like the whole entire world, because how you live now is not going to necessarily change if you move to another country to be missionary. Like if you're not living on mission right now, like how are you going to do that if you want to move somewhere one day and that to be your life? That's true. And I don't know what else. So I was going to end with that, but
no, that's really good. It's a really good point that you do kind of have to like start now. But the good thing is that you can. So sometimes it can feel really defeating of like, well, what am I supposed to do? There's so many different ways that you can get involved. First thing is definitely prayer. Like if you have a place on your heart, you may not be able to go there physically, but you can pray for that place so hard. I remember being in high school, Saudi Arabia just weighed so heavy on my heart. I didn't really know why. I didn't know anybody from there. I've never been there. And so the only explanation, I honestly was like, okay, God must be telling me I'm going to move there one day. And right now I don't really know if that's what it was, but I just started to pray. I said, God, like, I pray that maybe whatever like is going on there, if there's any unrest, that you could bring peace, that you could like be with people there, that you could meet people where they're at. Like if I'm sure there's people there who don't have like food, like allow them to get food, like just different things. I really started praying hard for them, and I feel like my heart actually grew for those people. I know like my mom, she is such a prayer warrior, love her, but she prays for like our local homeless community so hard, and like she literally says like she knows them by name. She's like, those are like my people. And so as I've seen her pray, I have seen her heart literally grow for those people, and she doesn't have to do anything. Like it doesn't cost money to pray, it's free, thankfully. So that's really great. But also, like we said, like there's a lot of different organizations, like local like groups that you can maybe help, like
Kids Count
people.
with
Kids Count,
Carrie like runs Kids Count as an after school program for 2 different schools in Gainesville. And like I know you guys get out of school like maybe I think usually slightly later than elementary, but like who says you can't like drive to Kids Count for 1 hour and help like someone do homework at and after school. Like if you care about kids and you care about like maybe you are interested in going into that field, like when you get older too, like there's a lot of ways where you can serve the people around us in our own community.
Yeah. Boys and Girls Club, another good one.
And I think also, I think sometimes it's easy to be like, well, like, if you love this area, like you should go serve in this area. And it kind of sometimes makes it feel like, oh, well, like if you don't have like a thing that you love or are passionate about, it kind of it might make you feel like, oh, like, am I like not doing enough? Like, I don't really have like a thing that I like am passionate about. Like, I don't really know. One thing that I like reading through the New Testament, I have been like realizing is like before Jesus, almost every time before Jesus serves someone in the Bible or he heals someone, it says, and Jesus had compassion on them. And I think something that has helped change my mindset is like Jesus had compassion for people before he even served them.
Wow.
And if that's not something that you have, it's not like something is wrong with you. Like this is something even now, like I'm like praying through, like, God, give me compassion for like certain people, whether that's someone at your school or whether that's a certain people group or a certain organization. And that's not like a bad or wrong thing to not have like a thing that you want to help change or do, because ultimately we're never going to be enough. Like, there's not even a certain amount of things we can do to like meet a standard that's going to be like, oh, like now I've reached this point where I'm like, wow, congrats to me. But like when we turn like more, instead of like inward, more upward to who Jesus is, like Jesus has compassion for people, like deep compassion. And if we could even just get like a sliver of that, like that's when we're going to start to like really care for people in a way that's more their surface needs, I think. And that's not something we can do on our own. That's why like I think what you were saying, like your mom praying for like the homeless people in your community, that's why like connecting with God portion of like living in the green, like God worship community, we have to have our like connection and worship to God. Like without that, we are not going to have compassion for like people. We might have it for a short amount of time, but it's just not going to last. Like we're humans, like we get tired. So like making sure that not only are we just like striving, or no, we shouldn't be striving to just do more, but like asking God for compassion in certain areas, or God, what do you want me to, like, who do you want me to serve? Who do you want me to give my time, my money, my energy to? And like, why do you love them? Because the reason you love them is it should be the reason I love them as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's really good. I love what you said. I really want you guys to like grasp that, as instead of turning inward to turn upward. All of this, the reason why I think sometimes we've had such tainted missions experiences globally is because, don't cancel me for this, but because they're devoid of the love of Jesus, and because they're devoid of God. It really is never meant to glorify ourselves. It really is meant to like, what does Jesus want me to do? And if we just even look at like, okay, I'm just going to follow what Jesus did. If you do that, you'll see he prayed, he had compassion on people, he's meeting them where they're at. Like he really will give us that, but it does come from looking up and looking to him and seeing what he wants to do. So that's really great. So if you are in the Gainesville area and you are a middle or high schooler, right, for Go, I think high school. I don't remember honestly if we did middle school last year. I can't remember either, but basically
I think just high school last year.
I feel like it could
stay tuned to know, to figure out if you can go.
They don't even know what it's like. Tell us to get, I know the suspense by killing you guys. So we have this thing called Gainesville Outreach. It is like a local missions trip basically to the city of Gainesville. It's 3 days. And this was my first year. This past summer was my first year doing it, and it was literally life-changing the best way possible. It really did just like saturate my heart. I'm gonna be honest, I've never been somebody who's felt very missional because that's not my natural propensity. But
that was a great vocab word.
Thank you. SAT vocab word.
High schoolers take note.
But even like this trip just really helped me to like open my eyes to what's going on around me. Something as simple as like we got to go to kids church in Holly Heights, and that was so cool because I was like, oh wow, like this is like sustainable, like you could do this all the time. And I loved how Tess, shout out Tess, she was like helping run it, and she was telling us, for example, like something as simple as inviting people to like church things does still make me nervous. I'm not gonna lie. So I really relate to people who are like, that scares me. She was like, so we're basically just gonna knock on their door and you're just gonna invite them to come out. And then everyone was like, what if they say no? She's like, then we respect that. And we're gonna say, okay, great, have a good day. And we're gonna leave. And I was like, oh, that's so easy. Oh, okay. And so even just something as simple as like learning how to like talk to people, invite people really helped like open the door for other conversations in the future. So I was just wondering if you could talk to us a little bit about Go, because you are helping plan that, lead that. It's kind of like your vibe. So yeah, just tell us about what we can expect.
This is my shameless plug to go to Gainesville Outreach. And it will be in the summer. So yes, it's not only is it just like fun in general, but I think what I've been able to do Gainesville Outreach since I was in high school, actually. And I think what like stands out to me, and I think even where my heart for missions like has come from, has been from being able to serve locally, like during those weeks in the summer. There's just something about being like, one, being intentional with your time with God every day, like getting in the word, like worshiping with community. Just having the mindset of like, you know, I'm not going to live in like my control today. I'm actually going to live in the control of like God's spirit today. And you do that for like consistently for a whole week, even if it doesn't radically change your life and you're like, I'm going to be a missionary. I think what is like so great about Gainesville Outreach is that like, I think most students can have like even just like a 1 degree shift of even their mindset or how they're living their life, whether it's 1 to 2 degrees. It might not be like a 360, like I'm moving across the country, mom, see you later, packing my bags. It does start to shift your mindset and have a heart for God's people, and you get to actually have a chance to practice that. And I think as being a leader, I think you've probably realized this too, like students come alive when they are serving God. Like it's crazy. Like
it's like a whole different person.
And like, I mean, I do too. Like I could be having a terrible week, but like when I commit my time and energy to God and letting him move like on his time, like things just, they start to change. Doesn't mean like things are perfect, but I think a lot of students realize their gifts and things like maybe they are actually really good at talking to strangers. And like, a lot of students you're not gonna probably realize that just living your everyday life, but it helps you get out of your comfort zone a little bit to figure out what is God calling you to. And I think that's a great way to like kind of figure that out and get exposure to like serving God's people and sharing who Jesus is. I sign up for Gainesville Outreach.
That's really good. And not gonna lie, so Miss Coronavirus, we can't really leave the country this summer.
It's very
but
sad.
If you're trying to do that, you don't have to, because you can go to go.
It's true.
So it's great. It really is. All right.
Go to go. The tagline.
Go to go. Did I just come? Am I in marketing all of a sudden? But the last thing I really want to talk about is, I guess, why should we even care about this? I know like, so we heard what Acts says, the Bible, we do, I guess as Christians, the goal is to follow that. But I know that for a lot of people, they don't really understand the importance. I know for me, like even talking about serving, a verse that especially this year has really just like become like a life verse has been like Mark 10:45. Honestly, that was from memory, so I really hope that was right. But it's for the Son of Man came to serve and not to be served. And I remember this past year that I started serving more. This summer, to be honest, doing the internship, it was the like busiest summer ever. Like literally the busiest summer ever. So I was fully expecting to be exhausted by the end of it, to be like grouchy, because when I'm really tired, I'm like a different person, not in a good way. I'm like the Snickers commercial. But at the end of it,
you turned into Betty White.
I turned into, oh my gosh,
R.I.P.
Betty White. But like this summer serving, I felt so alive. Like I literally, yes, I was tired. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I was living off of patty cakes. But I genuinely like felt so like just filled, and I just knew I was doing what I needed to do. And had I not taken that leap and started serving, I really would have never done that. And then when I started reading scripture, like it started connecting all these things of like the joy you find in serving others. I was like, oh my gosh, no, it is a joy. It's actually like, it really is so filling. And so even Mark 12:29-31, I want to share this with you guys. It says Jesus was answering, I believe his disciples or maybe other people. You guys can look at that. But it says, Jesus answered, the most important is, hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. And you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength. The second is this, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. There's no commandment greater than these. So like if Jesus himself is telling me what's important to him, like I don't have to guess.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks, my man. Like, so this is what weighs on him. So I just even want to hear from you, maybe why you think we should care about this even as Christians. Like,
yeah, I think it is like, also a fun fact, the first verse you said in Mark about Jesus wanting came to serve and not to be served. Yeah. I was taking a verse quiz when I did the college summer internship, and I'm like really bad at tests, and it was that verse, and I was like, I have a 50-50 chance. And I accidentally said that Jesus came to be served. And my discipleship leader was like, Ellie, that makes no sense. Why would you put that? I'm like, I don't know.
Someone's like, that's my gospel.
Stressed out. But yeah, that made me think of that when you said that. But I think this is one of those things where it's like, it's actually pretty simple. Like there's some things in the Bible that are like, not, I don't want to say like blurry, because I don't think God is not a God of confusion. But there are some things like dating, for example, like there's not a super clear guide of like what to do. There are like references and things, but when it comes to like living on mission, is exactly what you said. Like this is what God said, this is what God or Jesus said. Number 2, this is what Jesus did. So if he's saying it and he's doing it, like there's really no way around. Like I don't know what else to tell you. Like this is how we should be living and modeling our lives after.
Yeah, that's really great. So I just want to encourage you guys, like if you're curious about this, like test the Bible. Like some people are going to think that's really controversial. No, test the Bible, read through it and look and see like, what did Jesus do? What you're going to see is his heart was to set people free. Like the most freeing thing I heard was that Jesus came to free people, not to oppress them. Even like choosing women to be the first people to hear the gospel. Yeah. I was like, Jesus is for me as a woman. He cares. Like he really does. And so even taking heart in the fact that for you guys, like, you can start modeling this now. It doesn't, we know that people aren't going to be perfect. We're not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but even just starting to see like, how can I start to live missionally? And even just like praying about that and asking that question, it might honestly, for some of you, start with serving your family, like maybe helping out more with your family. Like maybe you have siblings or something, serving your parents. It may start at school. Like you may see the kid that's alone and maybe you need to be missional towards them and reach out to them, like having a conversation. Like you really never know what somebody may need. And you also never know how you can fill that need, how you can be like, Jesus is going to have you be what he needs you to be, because obviously Jesus isn't on this earth anymore, but we are. And so he's going to use us as vessels. So that's really great. So Ellie, could you share with us a few resources if somebody wants to know more, because this was kind of broad? Yes. What should we do?
Okay. So I have a couple of books. I'm not going to lie. I think I've only read the whole thing of 2 of these books. I've only read part of other books. Kat knows this about me. I'm not super good at finishing books. But this one I have read. It's called When Helping Hurts. It's like a book that our church usually reads. Like every mission trip that you take, we go through this book. Really, really helpful on like talking about what it looks like to partner with organizations that are actually sustainable and effective for people groups, rather than a pop in, hey, savior complex. Like we don't need that anymore. This is 2022. So this is a great resource for that. There's also, and that's more for like people living in poverty and need like basic needs. If you're more on like, man, people don't know the gospel, like, or who Jesus is, like how can I tell people about that? There's the book called The Master Plan of Evangelism. And it is by Dr. Robert E. Coleman. I don't know who he is, honestly. I don't know why I even said that.
Shout out Robert Coleman, though, wherever you are.
It talks about, it goes through what Jesus modeled and how he turned people to follow God, and then what we should do in response to that.
That's really
super
good.
great resource. This book is called Something Needs to Change by David Platt.
Know him.
David Platt, he's like super radical in a way of just like, he loves Jesus, and he's like, no, Jesus means, like, seriously means this, so I'm like seriously gonna do it. And he's like super convicting of like, no, like, we need action in the church, aka something needs to change. This is a great resource as well. That's about awesome. Missions. Talks about like actual radical change. And then last but not least, this is a super digestible book. It's like actually a story. It's called The Cross and the Switchblade by David Wilkerson. It looks like an old book that your high school 10th grade like teacher would make you read, but it's actually very good. It's about how the organization Teen Challenge started, and the person who wrote it is the person who started the organization. He just like lives his life fully for God, and did like had some radical things happen because of that. Super cool story. It has to do with teenagers, which is why I love it. So you might want to check that out if you enjoy like story version.
Thank you so much. That's really great. Also, back about David Platt, he also has a book called Radical. I'm not gonna lie, guys, I haven't read it, but I've heard really great things, and I heard him preach part of it at Passion, and it genuinely, like, I was crying by the end of that, not because it was like fake and emotional, but because it was genuinely so like raw and real. So if you're looking for something of like, I want to like live radically, I don't know how, read that book. It's so good. So we did cover a really, really big topic pretty broadly and pretty briefly. We are going to talk a lot more about missions. I'm excited. Coming up in Missions May that youth is having. Shout out to Ellie. And so even on the podcast, you'll hear from a lot of different voices then, even on just what it means, like, how are we going to do this the right way? How are we going to do this sustainably? So if you're like, I have more questions, we'll be answering those. But also, please, like, if you have questions, you can always email Greenhouse Youth's email, or because we don't really do emails anymore, we do have an Instagram. You can DM us, like, find Ellie, find Pastor Brooke. Like, they love to talk about this stuff. Find any leader, honestly. But before we go, so we're going to play If You Know, You Know. Okay. But with a missions twist. So, Ellie, I want to hear your funniest missions trip story.
Okay. I'm gonna shorten this a little bit, but I told Kat before this, I was gonna share another funny story, but it's a little bit of a liability. So if you want to hear it in person, just come find me. Some of you know it. If you know, you know.
No, truly.
But so I'll tell a different story. I was in Honduras, missions trip, like I shared earlier. I am like notoriously motion sick, like most of my life. And anytime something's like slightly wobbly, I'm like, I'm gonna barf. So if you get like grossed out, maybe don't listen to this part. So we were driving down, we were leaving, actually, we're going back to the airport. We were done with the week. We were driving down like this mountain in a 15-passenger van. There had to have been 20 of us in the 15-passenger van.
More liability.
It was real smushed. There's no air conditioning. We're on a mountain that's like shaky.
You couldn't see that.
Yeah, sure. I forgot this was a bad podcast. I was sitting actually right next to Mike Lane. Shout out to Mike Lane. He could tell that I was not okay, and he was like, I remember him looking over at me like so distinctly, and he was like, "Do not throw up on me." And I was like, I cannot throw up on Mike Lane. So I'm like literally like, I'm like this in the car. I'm up. And he hands me a plastic bag because he's like, "You're not throwing up on me. You better throw up in this bag." And I was like, okay. So like, I think I'm okay. I just like kept closing my eyes and being like, I'm all right. It's gonna be fine. We get out of the car. We finally get to the airport. We get out of the van. Like, we like tumble out of the van. There's so many of us in there. I take a couple of steps over. So sometimes when you go to other countries, there's like not police officers, but there's like people from like their army, like soldiers, like soldiers. So there's like soldiers like standing at the front of the airport, and I like take a couple steps over. I'm like, oh no. My friend Christian Dasa comes over. He like puts his hand on my shoulder. He's like, "Are you okay?" As soon as he says that, I'm talking like projectile vomit. It happens to splash the soldier that I was standing next to.
That's a great way to get arrested in another country.
It gets all over Christian Dawson's shoes and socks. And then everyone on the whole entire trip got to see it. Front row view of me throwing up into the front of the airport. And I was like, not okay. And everyone was like, oh my gosh. And then there's a couple of girls who are like, if someone throws up, like, I'm going to throw up. And I'm like, I can't help it. So like people are like running away from me because they think they're going to throw up if I throw up. It's a whole thing. And when you tell the story back, it's pretty funny.
It
In
is,
the
yeah.
moment, I was very sick.
I'm very sorry, but it is funny looking back. I'm sorry for your pain.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that
You're
with us.
welcome.
Hopefully, if you go on a missions trip, either you will want it to be that eventful or you don't, but
Yeah,
who knows?
it's memorable for sure.
Yeah. So thank you guys so much, even just for listening and chatting with us. I'd like to believe you guys are also conversing back. If you guys are in the area, definitely feel free to check us out on a Wednesday night at Youth, 6:45 p.m. Follow us on Instagram at greenhouse_youth. And remember, as you guys go out, to chase the faith and not the feelings. See you guys next time.